Are you struggling to make sense of what was done to you? Here, you will find many details to help you to understand so that you can get them out of your head and out of your life. Welcome to Psycho Begun. Do you feel mentally foggy, like you can't trust your own thoughts, like simple decisions feel overwhelming? You're not crazy, you're not flawed, you've been through emotional abuse, and this is a typical reaction. Hi there, I'm David McDermott, and by the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding of why your brain is scrambled and why it's not a sign that you are broken. If you've left an abusive relationship, or indeed you're still in one, you may feel detached from reality. Memory problems, self-doubt, confusion, a sense that you're losing it. You replay events in your head over and over, but you can't make sense of things. None of this is random. It is created by the manipulators, whether they are psychopaths, narcissists, or sociopaths. Your brain adapted to survive in a situation with a person who very often does not make sense. Now, there's a lot in that sentence, so let's dig a bit deeper. At the big picture level, in an abusive relationship, you're trained to put the wants and needs and desires of the manipulator ahead of your own. The second major piece to keep in mind is that you're made to be dependent on the manipulator. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail here about those two things. I've got other videos about these ideas. First of all, the dependency means that you need the manipulator to know what to do and say and how to act. But you also need the manipulator to know who you are. You're programmed to stay in the relationship, and it's very difficult to get out. Now, in order to stay, you have to figure out what's the best way to survive, sometimes literally survive, and make life as bearable as possible. And the best way to survive is actually to please the manipulator, to avoid the arguments, to avoid the criticism, the shouting, and so on. Your whole decision-making process becomes organized around one question: how will they respond? Even if the manipulator is not around, you ask yourself, if I go ahead with this idea, what will they say? If they're going to be upset about it, you don't do it. If you think they'll be okay with it, then you have permission to continue. So what's the problem with this? Well, these people very often don't make sense. Said another way, they are unpredictable. One day, something is fine. The next day, the same thing triggers anger, criticism, or punishment. You don't know how they're going to respond from one moment to the next. They may change the rules at any time, but they don't inform you about this change. You find out you're in trouble for breaking a rule that you didn't even know existed. This unpredictability creates what's known as hypervigilance. You become extremely vigilant around them. You're watching what they do, what they say, you're watching their mood, the atmosphere. You begin to organize yourself around them. If they're in a bad mood, you stay away, you don't talk, you don't do anything that's going to provoke them. If they're in a good mood, you think, okay, now is the time to ask for what I want. Now I can say something. Now might be a good time to ask them to stop doing something upsetting. You're looking to them for clues about how to act. But remember, they are unpredictable. They don't give clean, consistent clues or information. These types understand the power of information, so they will lie, distort information, withhold information. They create a sense of uncertainty. This is why so many people say that you end up walking on eggshells around them. When you live like this for a while, your brain stops trying to understand and it prioritizes survival. Now, add gaslighting on top of unpredictability. It's obviously a form of lying, but the damage occurs in the repetition, repeatedly challenging your memory and perception over and over and over again. I've explained this idea of repetition in other videos. But gaslighting is not just lying. It's a destabilizing tactic. It's a direct attack on your perception and your sense of reality. It creates doubt and uncertainty. So from our point of view right now, a direct result of gaslighting is that you do not trust yourself. So who do you go to for validation? Well, to the manipulator, of course. It increases the dependency on the manipulator because you need the manipulator to know what to do or what's right or what's real even. I highly recommend watching the movie Gaslighting from 1944. It's actually really well done. The only thing I don't like is the very end, because it's actually not easy for somebody coming out of a mind control environment to switch and recognize very quickly what was actually being done to them. Just something to keep in mind. Other effects of gaslighting are anxiety disorders, depression, low self-esteem, overanalyzing situations, internalizing blame, identity issues. Again, all important for people coming out of mind control environments. Another aspect I want to briefly touch upon is something that happened at the start of the relationship, often as a result of the love bombing. At the beginning, you were shown a version of this person that felt loving, attentive, and caring. Basically, you were tricked into thinking that they were the ideal partner for you. This belief was put in place with very, very strong influence techniques that you were not aware of at the time. So, for much of the relationship, you were doing things to try and get this nice person to come back out again. You didn't like the grumpy, angry, critical demon that came through the front door after work some days. So this first impression is very significant for several reasons. The first is it's very difficult to shake. The beliefs in mind control environments are often far stronger than normal healthy beliefs, which means that they're much more difficult to get rid of or to change. So you fell in love with this person who you believe also loves you, and at the same time, this person is also hurting you. This causes many internal conflicts. Why would somebody who loves me hurt me like this? They must be having a bad day, they must be stressed or tired or something. When it continues, you have more difficulty justifying it. You can't believe that someone who loves you would be deliberately cruel and callous towards you. It doesn't make sense. But you're sure that they love you. That's a given. You don't challenge that straight away. So there must be another reason for their nasty behavior. But you can't figure out what that is. You simply cannot reconcile that contradiction. The trouble is that you're trying to solve an unsolvable equation. Asking why someone who loves you would treat you like this is not going to get you any closer to the truth. And this brings me to the second thing. The second thing about that first impression is that it's not real. It's quite false. This marvelous person you fell in love with doesn't actually exist. That grumpy, critical, insatiable beast that showed up in the relationship is the real person. That's who you're actually dealing with. That's who you're involved with. The nice, kind individual is a fabrication. The manipulator presented you with this persona to trick you. This is not easy to get your head around, and it's not just you. This is a major factor for anyone coming out of a psychologically abusive situation. So you've been forced to live in a false reality while you were with the manipulator. This false reality was based on the idea that your partner was kind and friendly and loving. It's a lie. You were tricked. You were conned into having a relationship with this person. So with the gaslighting, the unpredictability, the idea that you were in a relationship with a normal, healthy, feeling human being, of course you're going to be confused coming out of a situation like that. Every aspect of the reality you were living in is up for question. You're realizing that none of these things were actually true, that everything that you believed to be true was something different. Now add in the isolation that abusers commonly create. Large doses of fear, along with copious quantities of guilt, black and white thinking, all the rules and regulations that were kept in place with rewards and punishments, and you create a situation where your thinking is no longer logical or critical. Rather, you move into survival mode. You live in this eternal present where your focus is whether what you're doing right now is going to be acceptable to the manipulator or not. And the past becomes a jumble. Its only use is as a horrible example of what's going to happen in the future if you upset your partner. So this gives rise to time distortion, and months and years fly past. So I think it's obvious that a mind-controlled environment is a high-stress situation. You're living under chronic stress. You're in fight, flight, or freeze mode much of the time. You're constantly in threat detection mode. Forward planning is very difficult when you're trying to manage the next few hours. Memory fragments, critical thinking narrows. Your brain was not malfunctioning. It was prioritizing survival over clarity. It was protecting you. When you leave, your brain doesn't just reset. Remember, I said that all sorts of things were done to you that you were not aware of. You don't know how to get back to where you were because you don't know the path back. And you really don't want to go back anyway. It's much better to go forward, to incorporate all that's happened with an understanding of mind control so that you don't get caught again in the future. But I'm jumping ahead. Your brain has been rewired, reprogrammed to think in a certain way, to perceive, to make decisions, and to act for the benefit of the manipulator. When you leave the situation with all the confusion and upset, it's normal to want and need to understand what happened to you. You're not just dealing with the breakup of a relationship, which can be very upsetting and distressing in and of itself, but you've all these extra added complications that you may understand little to nothing about. There's a lot of complexity leaving a mind control environment because of the fact that the usual systems are no longer in play. So what are these systems? You were programmed to check in with the abuser to know what was good, right, real, and so on. Now you no longer can or want to do that. You were programmed to make decisions to make the life of the abuser more comfortable. Now you're trying to make decisions to look after yourself. Everything revolved around the manipulator. After leaving, the center of your universe has shifted, and you're not yet used to being the center of your own universe. You're somewhat adrift, so to speak. This is very disorienting. The role you had in the abusive relationship, or cult, or toxic family even, your activities, your ideas and beliefs, your relationship to the manipulator, have all changed. For years you were led to believe that your situation was the best thing you could be doing. Anything else would have been a waste. Now you realize something about the level of abuse that was going on, and you want something different. But initially, there is no alternative. This is another thing that can be very disorienting. It takes a while to create an alternate existence. I think it's obvious now, with all these factors interacting, why you would feel confusion, not only while in the bad situation, but also after leaving that situation. One or two of these factors would be enough to make someone feel that they were going stark raving mad. But here we have many things going on at the same time, multiplying and amplifying each other. Saying that it's very complicated is an understatement. Trying to solve this problem with the same level of thinking that you used in the abusive situation is obviously not going to work. You need information. You need a different perspective. You need to be able to tease the lies apart from the truth. This takes time. It takes effort. Other people have done it, and so can you. So a couple of suggestions that will help are in order. If you haven't been doing it up to now, start writing. Make notes of memories as they come up. Jot down a reminder whenever you have an aha moment. Write about what you're feeling, the contradictions you have in your head, the contradictory feelings and thoughts you have. These can be particularly disconcerting for people. Some feel they're going crazy and begin to wonder if the abuser was right and they are the problem after all. Spoiler alert, you are not the problem. Writing things down helps to organize your thoughts because you have to think about things in a particular way to actually write them out. It's not the same as just thinking, where you end up doing laps in your head with the same ideas. Because your memory is temporarily shot to pieces, taking notes help with those frustrating moments when you can't remember that important realization you had 20 minutes previously. If you're out or at work, carry a small notebook where you can quickly scribble a note about something that you want to write about in more detail later on. A journal gives you something to look back on in 6 or 8 months' time, when you will be able to see things that you were unable to see previously. And do not beat yourself up if you forget to make a diary entry one day, or if you don't feel like doing it because you're tired. Nobody is forcing you to do it. If you miss a few days, so what? The world will keep turning, you will keep breathing, and things will continue. Another good idea is that which is suggested for parents with a new baby. Get help and get sleep. Sleep, rest, relaxation, all very important for people coming out of an abusive situation. I cannot understate the importance of these things. The mental energy it takes to recover is enormous. It may not seem at times that you're getting very much done, but the energy you expend to get these types out of your head is considerable. Do not fall into the trap thinking that you will get these 2 or 3 things done and then you'll take it easy. Part of the programming is to keep you busy so that you don't have time to reflect on what's going on in your life. You have to break that pattern. Sometimes it's best to rest first and then organize those 2 or 3 things. And get help. This is another pattern that has been ingrained in you. You are not allowed to ask for help or discuss with others what was going on in the relationship. Remember that your perspective has been grossly distorted. Your ability to think critically has been severely compromised. Getting other people's opinions and perspectives is often a very worthwhile exercise. Someone outside the relationship will be able to see things that you cannot. So ask trusted friends and family to help you to organize or to recognize alternatives. In the strongest terms possible, I suggest that you do not ask the manipulator's opinions. They're not going to stop dominating, controlling, and abusing. You have to put a stop to that abuse. So when your brain feels scrambled because it was trained to survive chaos, clarity returns as you understand what happened. Not overnight, but steadily. In the next video, I'll break down the mechanics of gaslighting in more detail, so you can see exactly how your perception was targeted and how to rebuild trust in your own mind. Mind yourself. Take care.